A cheap imitation. That is all Prince Harry and Meghan Markle can offer any country they tour. They are cheap imitators of the real thing, and that is royal tours, because royal tours are not just about a fashion display. They're not just about, having your personal photographer there to get great pictures on your behalf. Royal tours are about diplomacy, history, culture, and relations between countries, both political, military, trade, economic, even all those sorts of things all culminate in what a royal visit is supposed to be. But Harry and Meghan, because they are just so seemingly desperate for cash and desperate for anybody to give them a sense of validation, all they can offer when they go to a place like Nigeria, and allegedly even Ghana is interested in them coming, is a cheap imitation of a real royal visit. And this is a problem for the royal family, King Charles, going forwards, because obviously, as Charles has been sick, Catherine has been sick, the royal family really hasn't been able to do any foreign royal tours. Even last year, because of the coronation, they didn't do any. They did one in 2022, obviously, famously with Catherine and William, which didn't end on a great note. Now, to me, that note was entirely driven by a very, very negative media narrative driven by Harry and Meghan supporters. So I don't blame them for that whatsoever. However, when it comes to the royals' presence abroad, it has been very much diminished for some obvious reasons. And unfortunately, that has allowed Harry and Meghan to fill the vacuum. And because there is nothing to compare it to in our recent memory, because our memories are so short, Harry and Meghan offer this very tacky, classless imitation of what a royal visit is truly supposed to be. And when you look at Harry and Meghan's visit and compare it to the recent Scandinavian tour by King Frederick and Queen Mary of Denmark, you see the glaring deficiencies in what Harry and Meghan put on, and how this is going to be a continual issue going forward, because the couple is not going to stop, because they desperately need the attention and validation. And at the same time, too, they're desperate for the profile and the prestige that royalty gave them, that they cannot really replicate in Hollywood. And unless the royal family does something, again, this is going to continue to go on in perpetuity. So, in honor of exploring this today, we are going to look at what Harry and Meghan did so wrong in their tour, and a little bit about what Frederick and Mary did so right. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany. I provide you all compelling royal commentary about the latest news and sometimes a little bit of the drama going on behind the scenes. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, that would be awesome. I would love to have you back. We talk about so many things that I really try to give people a very good understanding of what royalty actually does, because unfortunately, Harry and Meghan drive way too much of the narrative anymore. So if you're interested in that, again, we would love to have you back. We have a great community here in the RNN Royal Court. And I did want to highlight my upcoming trip. So if you watch this channel, you enjoy Royals, I'm actually doing a trip with anybody who is interested, and we are going to go to Germany and the Czech Republic, visit the Christmas markets right before the holidays. And so we end the trip on December 22nd. And so if you are interested in spending some time with me and other people who love talking about royals, we will go and visit royal locations in those two countries as best we can, enjoy the Christmas markets, all the festivities and everything. I would love to have you come with us. So feel free to check out the link up above and see if you might be interested in joining us on this amazing tour. We're going to go to the Green Vault. Really want to see the Dresden Green Diamond, which was not there during the big heist that happened a couple of years ago. You guys remember that big heist of the Green Vault over there in Dresden? The Green Diamond was actually on display in New York at the time, so it wasn't there. And they lost some of the jewels, but pretty much they recovered anything. But if you want to know, again, more about the history and just the great royal heritage of both Germany and the Czech Republic, feel free again to check out the link. I would love to have you tag along. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So, what are royal visits? What do they entail? And I want to give us a good foundation, because then we can dissect how Harry and Meghan did literally everything you could possibly do wrong. So, a foreign royal tour is all about diplomacy. So, this means that they are connecting and acting as ambassadors for their country. In this case, most of the time, United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, Denmark, Norway. Every time they do a state visit, that is a big part of what they're doing. And so they meet with various government officials, political officials, cultural officials to really not only learn more about the country they are visiting, but at the same time, too, they are also there to represent their own country and to help formalize these relations between these two nations. That, again, is what royals do. It's a very critical role. It's a unique role because in a lot of countries, they don't quite have the same thing because royals going on tour, I feel like is very different than even, the United States president going on tour because our head of state and the leader of our government is contained within one person, whereas in the UK it's two. And so because of that, I don't even think in the US, like the president will go and have something that is even like a royal tour because it's really almost reserved for royals because of that unique role they hold as head of state, but yet not being head of government. And so I just enjoy that aspect of it. And it's about also formalizing relations between these two countries because sometimes they go back centuries, sometimes they're very new. So they explore these different sides of their dynamic. They explore these different sides in a diplomatic atmosphere where everybody's just trying to sort of gain and grow this relationship and bond. The other part is history. Usually it's talking about the history between the two countries. It's even the history of the country itself. So for example, when Catherine and William went to Belize, they went to a one of the Mayan temples. And when they went to, I believe it was Poland, it might have been Germany, so excuse me if I don't quite remember, but they went to a concentration camp during their tour of Poland and Germany. And so they usually add on some historical locations to tour and visit because again, this is about understanding the history of that particular country compared to the UK in this case. Where do they intersect? Do they divert? So these are opportunities to do that. And then you also have culture. You share your culture, you enjoy another culture, you enjoyed this new food, you enjoy these new activities like Catherine and William when they went to Bhutan, they did an archery competition. Catherine played cricket in Australia or New Zealand. I can't quite remember which one. So they participate in these various activities. They did dancing in Belize. They do all these sorts of things to sort of learn more about the country they're visiting and share more about, the country that they come from. Again, great cultural bonds are made. And then, of course, there's a relational aspect. So this is kind of covered under diplomacy, but I also feel like this is a little bit different too, because, for example, in the recent visit between Denmark and Sweden, because they are close neighbors because of the threat of Russia, there was actually a mutual defense agreement signed by the two defense ministers of the countries because they both came. Both of the kings went up and did some observed some military exercises and everything. So they did these things to sort of formalize this relations. Relations can also mean trade relations. So they want to establish better trade dynamics so that they get, lesser or a no tariff or something like that, or they can get their good quickly out of the harbor or something like that. These are the things that royals can help sort of facilitate. They can sort of grease the wheels between two countries because yes, Charles does sign the laws, but he doesn't really make the laws. He's just kind of, there to put his rubber stamp on it. But royals can help grease the wheel of these relationships because they're like, oh, the prime minister meets, once a week with the king, and the king recently met with the president of Egypt. Charles can say, oh, the president of Egypt said this. And even though Rishi Sunak met with the president at a different time, maybe he saw something different or they had a different conversation, something. And so this can help with all these sorts of different relations, both personal, professional, diplomatic, trade, all these sorts of things are contained within a royal tour. They're very professional, they're very timely, they're very, very highly coordinated and everything. And usually massive crowds show up to see the royals. So Harry and Meghan's tour, though, was absolutely nothing like that. And ironically, I became very aware of this because I bought the People magazine where Harry and Meghan and some of them were on the cover. This one, they're not. So they actually had sort of what you could call an A B testing, which means that you had two different covers, one with Kate Hudson and one with Harry and Meghan. So you can see Harry and Meghan's little blurb up here, but they didn't get the full cover on all the issues, which I feel like is sort of a slap in the face. If they were really, really confident, they may have just run that one single issue. And People magazine has been doing this more, obviously, because print is dying. And honestly, as well, and I really wanted, I think I'll do a video on this. People magazine essentially regurgitates what the PR team of whoever they're meeting with tells them. You can see this very evidently in a recent People magazine article about the number of searches for Meghan Markle's engagement ring. And they said in particular that Meghan wasn't seen with the ring for part of last year, around the Invictus Games. So I was like, no, no, no. She was missing the engagement ring the entire year, People magazine. That was that. I mean, I noticed it back in, I think, March, May. I noticed I was like, that engagement ring's not there. She didn't wear it again until 2024. So you're telling me because their excuse was, oh, she was getting it reset. It took an entire year to get that ring reset. I don't feel like maybe that's the whole truth. And isn't it your job as journalists to question that? But obviously they didn't. But you see it here that this tour was all about Harry and Meghan, had nothing to do with Nigeria, nothing to do with representing anybody else but them, because all they talk about in this magazine is themselves. So let me read you some of the quotes because I like to get these. I know some people criticize, oh, you're giving them attention. It's like, well, number one, I picked the one where they're not on the cover. So this tells People magazine I was more interested in Kate Hudson than Harry and Meghan. But also, as well, sometimes they put things in print that they don't put online. And I always like to try to have as much information as possible. So here's one of the quotes. It's from Meghan. She says, I always reflect back on myself as a young girl and the type of inspiration that I want to see in other women. I hope in some small way I can be part of that for a lot of these young girls, especially. I saw myself in them. I see the potential in all these young girls. And by the way, in these young boys. It's what we see in our own children, she added later, to give them that promise and excitement for their futures. So if you're counting, she started pretty much. So we had one, two, three, four, five, six eyes in there. And let's see, every sentence started with I. So I don't hear a lot about Nigerian people. I hear more about Megan and how she, it's important for her to serve as an inspiration for young girls because they need an inspiration. And really, the only person who can be an inspiration for them is apparently Meghan Markle. This is later. It says those close to the couple say that the Nigerian tour was not an attempt to highlight any perceived gaps in the royal family's workload, which is currently affected not only by Harry and Meghan's absence, it's not, but also by King Charles and Princess Kate's cancer treatments. Yes, that is the actual factor. Harry and Meghan have removed themselves. Yes, I said in a different world where Harry married a different wife, he could have been a great asset to the monarchy. But no, no, no. It's all about them. And so here he goes on to say these trips are about us being able to go out and focus on the things that mean so much to us. And being able to be on the ground to us is what it's all about. Meghan adds, just to connect to the people makes it special. But you guys said us 3 times. The trips are about us. Focus on the things that mean so much to us. Being able to be there to us, that is what it's all about. So, is it really about, the people in Nigeria or is it about you? I'm getting the real sense this is all about you. So she talks about, of course, her new heritage. She says, my heritage that I'm able to share with my children. That's such a special thing as a mother to know you can do. So again, about me, she talks about Lilibet earlier, that whole weird quote about, Lilibet seeing her reflection in her mother eyes and going, I see you and me, or something like I see me and you, or something like that. And Megan, trying to make that really deep. And I was like, I think the kid just saw the reflection in your sunglasses. I don't think it's as deep as you think it is. And so it goes on to say as well. And this is the woman who was on the stage with Megan when she gave her little talk. And she reflects on Megan that almost everybody in this room had 1 or 2 educational degrees to their name. You could see how she fit into the room very well. Megan's an intelligent and thoughtful person. So that's about Megan. So Megan's intelligent and thoughtful. So even when they have other people speaking on their behalf, they're not highlighting Nigeria. They're talking about Megan. They're talking about Megan. It's all about Megan. She's a role model for young women. No, she's not. She married to get to where she was. She has no relationship with her family. Like, she's not an inspiration or a role model for women. She's a terrible role model. She's a woman who is not in an easy position that she created herself, by the way. And people are looking to see how she is managing and navigating this. Not really, because she's navigating it really badly. That's the one thing she brings, inspiration. You can see, in spite of that, she's cheerful, warm, personality, and everyone in the room took to her. Yes, they do, but you should see how she treats her staff, people who are below her. She wants to charm you. So here's the thing with Megan. She's very charming, but she's charming to you when she wants something from you, when she needs to be, but behind closed doors, she doesn't sound like a very pleasant person, according to many of the reports from especially the bullying allegations from Buckingham Palace and the ever revolving door of staff departures for the couple. So yes, they are, yeah, not in a great way. And I want to say too, Megan, when you listen to her talk, is she sounds intelligent, but again, if you really think about the words she's saying, nothing that she's saying is really all that deep at the end of the day. She may sound a certain way, but if you really think about it, most of what she says is in fact very shallow. So it ends with this, because they have to bring up that in 2019, Megan told the world, "I'm not okay." In the midst of immense poverty in South Africa. But the couple goes on to say, "Now, you know what Africa means to me over the years," Harry tells people. "It is a very, very special place. And to be able to include Nigeria now in Invictus, I'm very happy." Megan adds, "We're just doing great and happy to be watching our family grow up and evolve. Of course, I'm happy. We're really happy." So, number one, when I feel like you have to say you're happy, I don't really feel like you're happy. If you have to repeat that, we're happy. We're really happy. I'm not sure I totally buy that because it feels like very forced. But when I look at this article, it's not only just completely self-obsessed on them, that's all they reflected. It's very shallow. Is you don't get any reflection of the work they are allegedly supposed to be doing. And so in so many ways, I'm like, so what was this tour about? Because again, if we go back to the definition, a royal tour is about diplomacy, establishing relations between two countries. This to me was a puff piece completely. Their tour was a puff piece. This again just confirms it. They could say nothing really about Nigeria except for the fact that, "Oh, it's so good to be home." Like that's all she could say about it. There was nothing about Nigeria in this piece. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why they maybe pulled it from all the covers. There's nothing of substance to the article. There's nothing of substance there. And there's nothing of substance to this tour. It's tacky. It's a tacky self promotional tour that is only meant to hype up Harry and Meghan and nothing else. Nothing else. And I mean, that People magazine article is so blatant about it. It's really quite staggering. And then, of course, you had in the magazine as well, and with Hassan Harriman also highlighted who's their photographer, and we'll get back to him. Of course, you had to do the channeling of Diana because they have this desperate need to try to replicate Diana. Meghan wore a couple pieces of Diana's jewelry. And so they said Princess Diana connects with the patient in leprosy hospital and rehabilitation village in Nigeria alongside Prince Charles. Prince Charles was also there, but you can't show that. And then Harry invokes his mother's memory at the bedside of a military veteran at an amputee hospital in Kaduna. And he says, "You do get better. I promise." How does Harry know? Has Harry ever had a debilitating, like, losing a limb? He doesn't know. He has no idea. The guy didn't even realize the cost of combat until he was on the plane home. He admitted that in his own memoir. This guy knows nothing of the suffering that the veterans go through. Yes, he has an organization that does talk about those things, uplifts those things and everything, but he personally doesn't know. He can't offer them anything but meaningless platitudes on this topic. And I feel like it's kind of disingenuous to look at a guy who maybe is recovering after getting his lower leg blown off and going, "It gets better. I promise." And he's like, "But what do you know? You got two legs. I don't. So what do you know?" He doesn't know anything. I think it would have come across so much better if Harry didn't say something like that. That means nothing. Oh, and we got this great clip as well where he's joking with the guy. "Have you named your prosthetic limb yet? You should do that." So go ahead and take a listen here.
You're last year. How's it working for you? Good? Have you given it a name? Go ahead. Give it a name. Strong. You're still getting used to it? So you're okay walking?
I'm sorry, but I just find that exchange incredibly dumb. So he knows a couple people who have named their limb. And so he's telling this Nigerian guy who he knows nothing about. He doesn't know the culture, he doesn't know the heritage, he knows nothing about this place going. Well, have you named your prosthetic limb? You need to do that now. Because that's the most important thing is that you name it. Again, the guy is oblivious. Harry is completely oblivious to this man's suffering, to this man's experiences. He's just telling him, well, name a limb. It's fine. Like, come on, come on. Ugh, and of course, we have to talk about their personal photographer, Missan Harriman. So I looked at some of Missan Harriman's. Let me see if he's added any new pictures. Not really, no. But when you looked at Missan's pictures, what you'll notice very clearly is that Meghan is the one usually in focus and Harry is out of focus. And so it's like, is he there to promote both of them or just her? Even the ridiculous thing about him submitting the portrait of them to the National Portrait Gallery, which I think they begrudgingly accepted, and they're going to put on the website, not in the actual museum. They're just going to put it on the website. Meghan's in focus and Harry is not. And my issue is when royals go on tour, yes, there's a photographer that goes around with them. But you know what they're doing? They're doing what you would call more news photography. They're there to capture moments. They are there to essentially report on events, but they have a couple of pictures. We'll even show here a couple of the ones you got from the Danes, the Swedes, the Norwegians on these behalf of these royal visits. They're not meant to be these pieces that evoke emotions or something that Masson Harriman is trying to do. They're making their tour into their own personal photography session, which Meghan did when she was with World Vision and went to Rwanda, but now they're doing it in Nigeria too. His job is not to be there to take great pictures of you and to promote you. That's not what royals do on tour. That is not what royals do on tour. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely inappropriate. And again, it's not what royals do. And he's there to be for Meghan. He's there to be there on behalf of Meghan, not really Harry, Meghan. It's there. Everything is about Meghan. You'll notice. And maybe I should have retitled this video, but in my mind, I just could only think of classy and tacky and cheap imitation. But Meghan is there making sure the tour is all about Meghan. It's all about Meghan, and that's why Miss Harriman is there. He's not there to promote them as a couple, he's there to promote Meghan. And again, that's not what anybody should be doing on a royal tour because it's about the couple. Obviously, as well, there was no British media. They weren't invited, they weren't really told, so they couldn't get visas and everything. And this was a chance for them to promote a very shallow view to People. And the reason they chose People is because People magazine, like I said, they're basically a PR puff piece. They don't do any real journalism anymore, it doesn't seem like. Because again, it would take you 2 seconds to determine that no, it wasn't that Meghan's engagement ring was just missing around Invictus Games, which is sort of what they implied. It was missing all year. It was missing for the entire year. You should like that's easy to find. I knew that. So why couldn't you figure that out? That took me 2 seconds to figure out. Again, it's just like journalism 101. Double check the facts. They don't do that. They just basically regurgitate what Harry and Meghan say and their PR team says. That's all they did. That's why this is a nothing burger of an article. There's nothing here because they don't even try. They don't even attempt. They're so desperate to maintain access. They'll just repeat whatever Harry and Meghan say. And I just find that incredibly tacky because I don't claim to be a journalist. I call myself a commentator, not a journalist, because journalists are supposed to do just basically report the facts. And I like to give analysis. And so I prefer commentator. And like the things they could have asked Harry, Meghan, and didn't, just the self-promotional, self-aggrandizingness of this visit is just again so typical Harry and Meghan and so untypical of what royal visits are supposed to be all about. So they also have nothing to offer. Like we said, when it comes to the relations in Denmark, in Sweden, we saw the two prime ministers of two different countries because on behalf of this royal visit, which again, they're very close related countries that should be mentioned in relations as well. Oftentimes there's family relations sometimes involved, is that they were able to sign a defense agreement. Harry and Meghan offered nothing to Nigeria. They probably won't get any tourism because they didn't highlight any historical or cultural sites. Because that's another byproduct potentially of a royal visit is that they encourage people to go to these various historical sites and historical and cultural sites, which this didn't happen. They can't offer any better agreements with any other country. Like here, this is entirely a nothing burger. Nigeria potentially wasted $1 million for nothing. They got nothing in return. They got nothing into return except for publicity, which maybe again is the point. But will the publicity turn into a tangible result? And so I guess when Ghana said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna invite Harry and Meghan," I'm like, really? Why? What? Like, look at Nigeria. What did Nigeria get? They're just out $1 million, and nobody's gonna go to Nigeria because there was no reason to go to Nigeria because Harry and Meghan didn't highlight the country at all. It was entirely self-centered on themselves. So why would anybody go to Nigeria? There's nothing to gain. There's literally nothing to gain. And so again, terrible, terrible look. We also have clothing in poor taste. I discussed this entirely in a video dedicated to Meghan Markle's abysmal fashion in Nigeria. It was all incredibly tacky, it was all incredibly inappropriate, and it lacked a regal air. Queen Mary of Denmark, she did casual, like very casual, like hiking. She did a casual date out in the city. She did gala, she did business, and she looked phenomenal in every single look. Some days it was hot, some days it was not, but she looked regal. She looked very put together. Like even her casual outfit. I loved this shirt and skirt combo with the ballet flats. Love it. It's amazing. It looks great. And I loved the gala look. Fantastic from Norway. Both of those looks for Norway. Fantastic. She went through the whole spectrum and just never lost a sense of decorum. Was always looked very, very beautiful and elegant. Meghan Markle just tends to look, quite frankly, tacky and classless in most of her wardrobe. And the First Lady of Nigeria completely agrees. So listen to a speech that she recently gave where she very much criticizes Meghan Markle and her reliance on the Hollywood lifestyle. So take a listen here.
We see the way they dress, they keep forgetting that Nigeria, we are beautiful. I said we are fashionable, we see what is going on. We are not having a Met Gala, and everyone, their nakedness is just everywhere. We don't accept nakedness in our culture. That is not beautiful. Even they are mimicking and emulate film stars from America. They don't know where they come from. Why did Meghan come here looking for Africa?
It just completely seems like she was absolutely talking about Meghan the vast majority of the time, the comments about nakedness and everything. And yes, obviously the Met Gala is very, very different than what Meghan Markle wore in Nigeria for the most part. But I think her comments are still on point. Meghan was dressed completely inappropriately for the environment she was in. And this would never have happened on an actual royal tour because she would have been told time and time again something is inappropriate. You shouldn't wear X. Not because they're trying to really restrict her wardrobe, but just because it is not culturally appropriate. But Meghan Markle again shows she doesn't really care about that. Because it seems to be more important to her to look sexy than it is to actually look professional. That's the sense you get throughout this whole visit. Is that it's not professional, it's tacky. It's not reflecting this greater and broader real focus that tours have. It was that there, I need to some merchandise because there was especially a couple of dresses that were reoffered all of a sudden, especially one from Heidi Merrick that was over double the original price. And it's like, oh my gosh, you guys so obviously timed this and doubled the price just because Meghan wore it. Which I mean, I get it, it's capitalism, but I thought that was so stinking tacky. So unbelievably tacky. That it again lost its focus. What is this tour supposed to be about? Is it supposed to be about Nigeria and the Invictus Games or about making Meghan Markle money? Just seems to be that it. We also have the best thing, cavorting with criminals. That is what I'm calling this because they ended up with two fraudsters they were interacting with. So one was the owner of the airline who flew them around. He has been on the run for the US for a while. He's I think owes people $20 million or somewhat. And then there's also a Nigerian king who apparently is a con man, twice deported from America with a lengthy criminal record and a distinctly murky past. I also looked this up because I wanted to do this video and I was thinking about this. Nigeria ranks at 154 out of the world, which is almost 200 countries. So they're in the bottom 75th percentile when it comes to corruption. It is an incredibly corrupt country. And when I began to think as I looked at that for Harry and Meghan, is I realized that when it comes to Harry and Meghan, who they're going to attract in this desperate effort to still seem like royals is people who are generally, you could offer, more corrupt because they are willing to use Harry and Meghan because they are willing to be used. And when it comes to that, people are offered them things not because they really want Harry and Meghan, but because, oh, we can promote our country or we can do this, or they're willing to do that because Harry and Meghan's desperation means that they can easily be taken advantage of because they have no firm foundation because all they're doing is searching for the money. And so corrupt people are more than willing to exploit that. And Harry and Meghan then go into the corruption themselves, essentially by doing the quid pro quo, because that is not what happens on a royal tour. Yes, sometimes royals get caught flat footed with somebody either they weren't expecting or somebody that didn't hit their radar when they were doing maybe their initial research. But when it comes to state visits, especially, like these things are highly, highly vetted. I can bet you, bottom to dollar, Catherine and William would never have been caught with either of those people because their teams would have read through the dossiers and go, oh, no, 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 we can't do that. So we're going to do something else. Unless it was something totally unavoidable, like some people have complained about Mohammed bin Salam, who was the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, the future king, and obviously his alleged involvement, I say alleged just for legal reasons, in the assassination of a journalist. The royals still meet with him. He still has relations with royals and a lot of world leaders because you just can't totally avoid it. Does that mean they don't have different feelings on the inside? Yes, but they still need to have a relationship with him based on the country he is going to rule, the oil, everything, and the fact that he's interested in obviously having a relationship with them. But Harry and Meghan just look incredibly bad. The whole tour, I think, is aging really, really badly for them because they had nobody to vet these things because it's all about them. They don't care enough to have the full team and they don't have the full resources because they're not working with the embassy. An embassy, the UK embassy in Nigeria, I'm sure could have told them, "Hey, don't get caught with this guy, that guy, this woman, whatever." And they would highly choreograph everything to avoid bad scenarios like that. And so Harry and Meghan, of course, look like fools because they got taken advantage of, basically, because they were willing to be taken advantage of. That is what's huge here. As things continue to go forwards, I think Harry and Meghan won't attract dignified countries. They'll attract incredibly corrupt countries because if they are willing to be used, other people are like, hey, we're more than willing to do that. And we'll, soothe your ego and satisfy your ego in order to achieve our goals as you attempt to achieve yours. Again, bad luck. And again, the whole tour had this lack of decorum, lack of diplomacy, and there really was no diplomatic things except for Harry telling them, hey, you're my relatives, you're my in laws. And they all laughed. And it's not funny because they're not your in laws. You don't even talk to your actual in laws except for your mother in law, Harry. They seem so desperate for a family that they'll attract anyone who is more than willing to put up with them at this point. And that's what it seems like when you look at this whole tour. When Frederick and Mary go out, they are the king and queen of Denmark. Yes, I know some people don't always like them, but they have the power and authority of the Danish government when they go abroad. Harry and Meghan have nothing. They are two royals desperately seeking any country that gives them a sense of validation that they are desperately craving. And that's why the entire tour will always come across as tacky, classless, tasteless, lacking decorum, diplomacy, so many things, because Harry and Meghan are just so desperate to recapture that royal magic. Royal magic is something that only really works though if you live in a palace. If you are actually a working royal, that's where the magic truly comes from. Harry and Meghan have no magic anymore. They're desperately trying to respark it. They'll bring along the son Harryman. They'll try all these sorts of things to try to recapture what they had in 2018. But none of it is working. None of it is working. And that is because when you are that desperate, people can smell it and they're more than willing to exploit it because you're just so desperate for it. And, that even goes back to Meghan being a D-list actress. She has been always desperate for fame and fortune. She does anything to try to gain attention. And because of that, she's found herself, I think, sometimes in, somewhat sticky situations, but she's trying to always curate this image and it's not working. And when you see this tour, it comes across so incredibly badly. And the royal family has a choice to make here. They let Harry and Meghan drive the narrative because believe me, they are. When I talk to people, I went to a YouTube event with other creators in Los Angeles, and they don't know really anything about the royals, but what something like People magazine tells them, which is wrong, which is wrong. It's not good journalism. It's not good royal reporting. Because of that, that is the only impression they're getting. That's the only understanding they have is this very surface level, Americanized version of what royals are supposed to be and do. Because, I pay for the subscriptions to the Times, the Telegraph, all these other UK publications so I can have a better understanding of what is going on in the UK. That's why I mostly report to you guys from UK newspapers because they are the sources. They are the good sources on most of the royal matters. There's a article from the Daily Beast talking about how Catherine's not going to be seen for the rest of the year. And I'm like, I don't really think that's the case. The British reporters have said fall. I've said fall from the beginning because that makes sense in terms of the treatment times and everything. Fall makes sense. But the Daily Beast is American, so they're not really going to get the best royal news. But So many of Americans just don't understand these intricacies. They don't see because they don't get as much attention the tours of Frederick and Mary, that they don't see what royal tours are actually supposed to be. And all they end up getting is this cheap imitation that's all about self aggrandizing, self promoting, greedy, that they don't understand what royal tours are really supposed to be all about. And that's why the royal family needs to take these things so incredibly seriously. Yes, they're trying to get back to work. Yes, they have a lot on their plate. But this stuff does matter because unfortunately, Harry and Meghan are setting the narrative for the rest of the world. And because it's been so long since you've been able to go on tour, I don't think we may see a bit of a tour to Australia later this year with Charles. We probably won't see Catherine and William on tour until next year. Unfortunately, during that absence, Harry and Meghan are going to continue to try to do these things and are going to be imitating something that is, in fact, very real and cheapening it for everyone else. And that can only go badly for the Windsors over time. That can only go badly for them. So they really have to figure out how they are going to address this because this is going to get ever more important. So guys, I hope you really enjoyed this video. I hope it was a bit thought provoking because that's what I try to do here at Royal News Network is give you some thought provoking news. So guys, thank you so much for watching and I shall see you soon. Bye.